let's talk about it now, I guess.
Yeah.
So, is what we were talking about is that women, we all scoff, I guess the word, or none of us want these challenges. None of us want these, the crap in our life. And we just want to my phrase that I say all the time is I'm done with the learning. I'm ready for the living.
Oh my gosh.
Lessons
Yes.
are gone. I'm done. I'm done with the lessons. I've learned for 42 years. I've learned bring on the living already and the enjoyment and the lying on a beach, ideally, right? But it's so funny, this quote that we were talking about, the strength of the hero is directly correlated with the magnitude of the adversary, is so true, because the greater our adversary, the greater our challenge, the greater whatever it is that we've had to withstand, we're still standing.
Mm-hmm.
So by definition, we got through. So the bigger the challenge that we chose for ourselves, the greater women we become. So it's just kind of it's just a funny dichotomy to know that. And that if we view our challenges, and this is what I think people like us, or anyone obviously tuning into a podcast about this kind of stuff, is feeling, we didn't choose easy. We chose extraordinary.
Wow.
And if we choose easy, no, everybody knows an easy life, we want it, but we don't really.
Mm-hmm.
We want challenges. We want to get through stuff. I always think, and I'm sure it's so funny, I was thinking Mount Everest, single parenthood, single motherhood, divorce, all of this stuff. Would you not compare it to not that I've climbed Everest, but maybe we should climb Everest together at some point, maybe just base camp. We'll go to
Maybe
base.
just base camp
We'll
and
go to base
see,
camp.
does it compare to the journey?
Well, and this is what I imagine, because I see this image of myself climbing Everest. And I feel like every day single motherhood feels like at any moment I can break. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm mentally and emotionally drained. I'm, questioning what my body can do, if I can keep going. But then you imagine getting to the summit and seeing everything that you've done, everything that you've accomplished. Well, that summit wouldn't be the summit that Everest is if we didn't have a difficult climb. If it was,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? If it was just some random hill.
Because it means something, because you know that you had to fight
Yeah.
in some ways to get up there. You had to overcome challenges. It reminds me so much of our first conversation when we met, and you were like, parenting doesn't necessarily get easier as they get older. You just get better at solving problems, right?
You say it so much better than I did.
I'm saying it just like you did.
It is. It's true. Look, we don't want problems. When we don't have problems, we're dead. So we just want, first of all, to upgrade the problems. We want higher quality problems. But not only that, we want to become better problem solvers. And then in addition to that, we want to model that problem solving capabilities for our littles.
Mm-hmm.
We want our children to see, this is what mom went through. This is what dad went through. This is what we did all by ourselves while raising you. Because you know what? Maybe one day you'll have to do it too.
Exactly. And I think what I am seeing now, getting older, being a parent, watching others get older and being parents, is
Yeah.
the kids really need to see that. They need to see that life doesn't always go your way. And there is a point where you will be called to respond.
Absolutely.
And have we equipped our children with the tools to respond, or are they not going to know how to handle the situation?
And that's the thing. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Yeah.
It's so beautiful, because it's if you think of, okay, motherhood at its purest. So this is equipping our children. If you think, oh, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this. Motherhood at its purest is truly us making our role inconsequential. We're trying to make ourselves unnecessary. When we make motherhood unnecessary for our children, we've done our job. Because when we leave this earth, they've been, you know what I mean? We've parented them properly, that they're
Yeah.
okay without us. So I love that. I love that feeling that, yeah, they're always watching, they're always listening.
They are, and paying attention to how you're handling it, and I've noticed that with my daughter, she is 10. She's at the age, I feel like, where for myself, there were a lot of critical pieces happening for me that really shaped my identity, and so I am
Before as a child, when you were a
as a
child?
child,
Yep,
yes, as a child. So I'm like, there are some experiences I don't want her exposed to or to have to really go through. And so it's interesting as I'm showing her, like, let's say, for example, self respect and teaching her, you don't have to stay in environments that you're not respected in, which means I have to model that.
of course.
And it's always interesting because I'm like, not only am I modeling it for my daughter, I'm doing something for myself that my 10-year-old self wishes she had the ability to do.
Exactly. You're healing your nervous system, and you're
Yes.
creating a norm, like a normalcy for your daughter.
Mhm.
Because when she sees like this idea of my mother respects me, like all of these things, I have self-respect. Again, you don't have to tell her, but that's her home. That's her emotional home. That's where she's going to live. So the second someone disrespects her, she'll be like, "Oh, wait, no, that's not okay.
Exactly.
That's not how we do things here." Whereas if she grew up being disrespected by family, by friends, by all of these things, the second she meets a man to date who is perhaps, wonderful and kind and respectful to her, that's going to be like, "Ooh, there's something wrong with you because my nervous system,
Exactly.
that's not
Yes.
love, that's not safe." So you're
Exactly.
you're teaching her how to, partner, how to be a good human, with a love interest later on in her life, or with her girlfriends or anything. And none of us, like, it's so funny how we grow up and we try to heal. We try to heal all of our I had a wonderful meaning mother, but she's like Ukrainian. Well, her parents were Ukrainian immigrants, so they're
Mm,
very hard people, like no therapy, no talk about feelings, no, like, we just
yeah.
don't do this, right? So my mom was very loving, but my entire growing up, I felt like my mother hated me because no hugs, no I love yous, no kisses. And when I told her later on in life, I said, I felt like I went through life when you hating me. And she's like, "Oh no, I did your laundry. That was love." And it's like, so I was attracted to men who were incapable of showing love because I needed to prove myself. Please
Yeah.
love me. Please
Yeah.
give me whatever crumbs and scraps that you can give me
Oh
because,
my goodness, yeah.
let's achieve this. Let's do this. Look how amazing. I'm the best girlfriend in the world. So
Mhm.
please love me so that we can heal that primordial wound. So, I mean, again, back to the gifts we give our children. And again, my mom was well meaning. Like, my mom loved me. I know that.
And yeah, and for her, that was love.
Exactly.
That is what love was. I was explaining that to my daughter. I was like, we are taught love.
Hmm.
And we can't really control who's teaching us or how they're teaching us.
Yes.
And the way I compared it is like, imagine if every day when you come through the front door from school, I say, take off your shoes,
Yes.
right? I was like, so when you grow up and you have your own house and you have your own rules and your kids, what are you going to tell them? She's like, take off their shoes. Is like, that is how it works.
Yeah, and it's a sign of respect, right? It goes beyond taking off your
Yes.
shoes and habits. It's like we respect our home and we respect another home that we walk into. It's just something we do. Again, it's not something we do, it's who we are.
It's who we are. Yeah, you're almost creating, and I know my type A is gonna come out, but you're almost creating like automated workflows for them in their mind, where it's like, if I'm experiencing this feeling with this person, then I need to go stage left or do I need to go stage right?
Oh
And
God, that's
because it's
beautiful.
ingrained in them that if somebody is disrespecting me, this is the workflow that I take. If I feel safe, this is the workflow that I take. And that's kind of how I envision it. We're doing automation workflows for our kids through our practical actions.
Well, and look how funny. You just said an automated workflow. Well, what you're describing is the autonomic nervous system, right? So our
Yeah.
nervous system at any given moment is telling us, are we safe or are we in danger? So that's like, but I love that's how you saw it, as this automated workflow, when really, yeah, it is, because it's automated because it is
It is.
automatic. We are conditioned a certain way to behave a certain way, to make
Mhm.
meaning, in certain ways.
Mhm.
And that's modeled by our parents. And again, as single parents, we've got a lot on us because we have to be everything to
Everything.
everyone. And then on top of that, have half the time and need to make double the money. And you know what I mean? Like, we've got everything against us. So it's almost like we need to take those challenges and use them as, I don't want to say an excuse to shine, but use it to light the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like I'll do this when it's convenient. It's like I must until.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? And it comes out in our children, it comes out in, what we get out of life. And, like, again, back to the Everest. We're climbing Everest. We're doing the impossible. Oh, it's not impossible, but we're doing something. We're Sherpas.
Yeah.
You and me are the Sherpas. I love that. See, but that's the thing, is it's like you want to be around women who are themselves on their journey. None of us have it figured out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny. This, when we teach online, I teach not because I know the material or I'm a master of the material. Yeah, I know it. But why do I know it? It's because it's my issues. We're healing together,
Exactly.
you
We are
know?
healing in community together.
Of
Yeah.
course. And it's just this idea of journey. And, we're all very vulnerable with each other, and we're always growing. And it's so funny, like that too. When I started studying, I studied design thinking at IDEO. And the reason I went to study design thinking was because I was in the moms groups. And I'm like, we have to solve this single mom problem. There's your type A. We have to solve the problem, right? And I was convinced that the problems that we were solving, so in design thinking, like, I saw the problems were impossible, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, we need to learn how to ask better questions, which is the tenet of design thinking. It's about, you've got a problem, and they'll say that, like, for example, my boss is a jerk. Well, when you frame something as my boss is a jerk, it's called a gravity problem. You can't solve for gravity. It's
Yeah.
just the way it
It's
is. My boss
gravity.
is a
Yeah.
jerk. You could say something like, oh, I'm doomed for life as a single mom. I'll never be able to make ends meet, right? Gravity problem. When you reframe the problem and look at it a different way, so using the boss as a jerk example, you can say, my boss isn't necessarily a jerk, but my boss is bad at feedback. Okay, that works. Because when you say my boss is bad at feedback, it opens up a whole slew of solutions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we did a finance class and we talked about this because one of the girls, and it was funny, she posted, and it was perfect for this talk. She posted in the group this picture of, I think it was Jodie Foster. I mean, who knows if it was Jodie
Yeah.
Foster that said this, but I was right before a finance talk I was going to give. And she said that this picture, it said, the finance industry is so complicated and it's all these crazy derivatives. And the reason it's done by these selfish people who want to essentially take all of our money and not let us participate in the market.
Mm.
So it's so funny. I opened that talk with, okay, it's fantastic that this was posted because I used to think that too. And it's not totally untrue. But here's the thing. When you think that the financial industry is this horrible industry that's out to take your money, there's no solving for that. What's the solving for that? You don't participate. And well, who does that hurt? Like, you know what I mean? I don't invest.
Yeah.
That's your problem. If instead you'd said, like, what's the real problem here, right? That was the gravity problem. The real problem is that I don't understand. So when you reframe from the financial industry is this terrible place that I can never have a chance at winning to, I just don't understand the financial industry. Well, right away, I can get a financial coach. I can get an advisor. I can read a book a day. I can listen to a podcast. I can do this. I can become an investor. So it's like all of these things. It's just by just this tiny little reframe, we open up all these possibilities. And in that particular talk, we went on. I told the girls, I go, look, I went years. I did the CFA designation. I studied finance. I studied behavioral finance. I studied financial abuse recovery. You name it. Finance was, everything for me. And I'll tell you why next, actually. But, I said, there are certain derivative, complicated butterfly spread, crazy strategy, whatever, like options strategies that are very complicated and they aren't for us. But that's not the game we're playing.
I love that you said that.
Yeah, that's not our game. So for any woman who thinks that the financial industry is too complicated for her, she's not out there making not theoretical, but making like bonds to offset a pension fund's liability obligations. She's not doing that. She's doing boring, responsible, automatic, S&P 500, you know what I mean? Like simple investments over time. That's her game. That's the
Yes.
one she's playing. And that takes reading a book. Like that's all you need to do. You need someone to tell you, buy the S&P 500, set it, forget it, go for it. You'll do better than 95% of the people out there.
I love that you said that because I do feel like, especially in the finance space, it can become overwhelming and you're focused more of the problem of this is overwhelming versus the solution, which is you just need to be educated and you need to make sure you're simplifying it for your pathway.
Yes.
And I
And the
think that's so
education, oh, sorry.
critical.
Remember the education. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
You're okay.
No, shall we talk? So this is when you said the education. This is where, okay, this is, I get very, very passionate about this. So we have more financial education than ever out there, right? There's everybody, there's financial education, financial literacy, as they say, isn't the problem. The problem, I believe, because we're poorer than ever, but there's more access to information than we've ever had before. There's also vehicles that allow us to responsibly invest now that didn't exist before. The problem is that we've been traumatized by money. And the problem is that, again, as a single parent who's afraid to open a bill, whose only experience of money is that money destroys families, the second you start even talking about money, they go like this.
I definitely understand that.
It's that nervous system response. This isn't safe. Well, when you believe money isn't safe, or that people with money somehow did it on the backs of like innocent poor people, or if you believe that, money is the root of all evil, or that we're too stupid to, invest in all these things, or that it's a zero sum game, you're not going to even listen. So first you need to address your nervous system and think, where did my money beliefs come from? What's my first memory of money? My memory of money, I remember my parents fighting over it. So, you know what I mean? Like there was never, my first, actually funny now that we're talking about it, my first memory of money was I went to a school, an elementary school where people had means and we were middle class. Like we didn't go hungry, but there wasn't any money to buy like nice fashion. And I remember my first experience where we had this girl in our class, Katrina, and
Oh,
she
wow. This is a very core memory.
core memory. She's a beautiful girl, ballet dancer, like stunning. She's still stunning to this day and a gorgeous person. But she would come. I don't know. Do you guys have Club Monaco in the States? You have Club Monaco.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That sounds very, yeah, that
Kind of
the store.
preppy, but like, yeah. And she would wear Club Monaco. And she was so beautiful that I'm like, I asked my mom, I go, can I go shopping at Club Monaco? My mom's like, no, I can't afford that. And I remember that being my first experience with money, being like, I just realized that, you know what I mean? I can't afford that. And it's so
You
funny.
can't get everything you want, and it's not always just because mom is saying no.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be, no, we literally don't have the
We
means.
don't have the means.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. And another funny money story, years later, I got a job working. Oh, my first job was working at a sperm bank, actually. And that's a whole my life went crazy when I realized my first job was at 15 working. My uncle was a very famous reproductive biologist.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah,
the
he was.
audience is going to need some context for
I
that
know,
because
I
you just
know.
dropped that one on us.
It's one like, yeah, sperm bank. Life goes insane. No, he was a professor at the University of Toronto, very well known reproductive biologist, invented very sort of the in vitro fertilization ICSI. He did like he had his hand in that, and he was very very well known. So I worked at his clinic at the sperm bank. So now I've lost my train of thought. What was the point I was trying to make?
Your money
I
story.
was making money. So when all of my contemporaries were working at McDonald's, making what at the time was probably $5 minimum wage, I was making 15 an hour,
Mm.
and it was huge money. And I remember the first paycheck I had for myself, I put it in the bank, and where did I spend it? Gianni Versace.
You went big.
I went big. I'm like, I bought a pair of white pants with a clear stripe on the side and this beautiful black like silk top that I had for a decade. And I bought Versace, baby, with my $800 paycheck. And I bought $800 worth of a shirt and pants at the time, which would have been like maybe $5,000 today. But it's so
Yeah.
funny how like we swing, right? The pendulum swings, but it just goes to show like where, and for your listeners too, right? These are my stories. But I hope that by telling them, it might be like, what are your money stories? And whose stories are they really?
Mm.
Like, are they ours, or were they put to us? Like, very common in the single mom community. Beautiful, a friend of mine, I remember sitting at the table, and she, was working at a, I don't want to say minimum wage paying job, but close to minimum. And she was very, very smart and very capable. And I told her, I said, you'd make an amazing executive assistant. Why don't you? Because she's a mom, but she's like, let's get this done kind of mom, like figure it out until kind of
Perfect
mom.
for executive assistants.
And in downtown Toronto, they could make up to 100 grand, which was probably 4 times what she was making. So I suggested that, and she's like, oh, no, I couldn't do it because my family would think, like, oh, who am I? Like, who is she? And my family wouldn't like me because they'd be like, oh, you think you're better than us.
Yeah.
That now, okay, again, you think you're better than us. How does that? How many people have been told or are afraid to shine, dim their glow just to make the people around them feel brighter?
Exactly.
You
Or
know?
like you were talking about earlier, right? Because they might not be doing it. They're triggered by you
Yeah.
taking that leap of faith. And I think it goes back to like whose story is it anyways and what our relationship is with money.
Yeah.
I know that we jumped into the conversation for the audience. I know you have been in the single parent space and you have definitely been supporting finance in the finance realm as well. So, kind of tell us a little bit about your community and
Yeah.
how you support the women within your community.
Well, if I may, I'll rewind a little bit to why I started this and
Mhm.
the reason and my sort of reason, like, yeah, the reason for doing this. So I was a singer living in Manhattan, not a care in the world. I was singing, I was, doing the whole thing. And I met my son's father, who was a knight in shining armor. He was perfect. And it was very quick. We hear all about the love bombing and stuff now, but that wasn't a thing back then. It was just like, oh my God, how could I be so lucky to get this amazing guy? And I got pregnant by mistake. However, I call my son the Beautiful Oops from a Jamie Lee Curtis book that she wrote, a gorgeous book
Oh,
called
I
The
love
Beautiful
that. The
Oops.
beautiful oop.
Beautiful Oops. I was 28 at the time. So, at this point, it was like, and I loved my partner. I thought he was wonderful. He was perfect. So I'm like, you know what? I can do this at 28. And he says to me, I'll run everything. You can be a songwriter and all of this. Everything would be great. Well, things turned very quickly. And he took all of my money. He essentially, just not there, had, whatever. But when he left, he said to me, and this is where the story kind of turns and why this will all make sense. He said, if you ever come after me for child support, I will tell the judge you're so stupid with money that I will have your child taken from you. So I wasn't a stupid woman. I was a musician. I was very smart, but I did know nothing about money. I knew nothing about business. And all I knew was my voice, contrary to what it sounds like today. But, anyways, all I knew was my voice. So, in that moment, right, when you think of nervous system, and we all have these moments that are extremely emotional, all I could think of in my head was, oh my God, if only I had been smarter, if only I knew about money, this wouldn't
Yeah.
have happened. So I had this part of me, if this community knows the internal family systems work, body of work, Richard Schwartz, the bad parts, we have these various parts of us that come out when something traumatic happens. So again, we call her Nonstop Nancy. She came out because she's like, oh my God, I need to learn everything about everything. I taught myself how to speed read so that I could read a book a day. I went crazy. I started a commerce degree at the University of Toronto, which is like the toughest degree in Canada to get, the BCom there. Then I did the CFA designation, which makes me a chartered financial analyst. I was working 2 jobs in finance and capital markets. And then at this time, I'm already kind of crazy. My ex decides, because at the time he owed $500,000 in backdated child support, he decided to start litigation against me because he wanted to choke me and say that, like, he says, you're going to say I owe you nothing or I will bankrupt you in legal fees. So in my ignorance, I'm like, oh, whatever, they'll see through you. Well, the second you tout parental alienation, the courts take it seriously. So it didn't matter that this guy didn't even so much as ever send his kid a Christmas present or a birthday present or a message. They would hear it.
There was a
So,
claim, yeah.
so in this period of time, here I am doing everything right. Add to that $200,000 of legal fees. So I'm in this position where I'm thinking, oh my God, I am working 2 full-time jobs in finance so that I can finance the services I need to keep me afloat. So my lawyer, my therapists, my functional doctor, my osteopath, like you name it, right? I needed all these things to work because I had to function. So I go, I'm working myself to death to finance these thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of services to keep me working. And I'm like, there has to be a better way, which is how single parent redesign was born, right? I went to my lawyer, I went to my doctors, I went to my hypnotherapists, which is why we were talking about hypnotherapy earlier. I went to all of these people and I said, can we come together and make a suite of services for single parents where they could get the best chance to thrive? right? Because a lot of like it's just ironic. I guess it's ironic would be the right word. The very things that we need to live our best lives and the support services that we need, we're priced out of.
Yes.
That's a
Completely
problem.
agree.
That's a huge problem. A single mother who's struggling with her mental health and all of this because she's been traumatized, she can't afford the therapy that she needs. There's all kinds of amazing services out there right now. Like we said, the IFS, internal family systems, there's ketamine therapy.
Yes.
You guys have that in the States for sure. In Toronto, I tried my first ketamine therapy a few weeks ago, $100. Who can afford that?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So all of these things, I thought, well, let's come together. Let's get amazing practitioners. My lawyer who's on right now, we're looking for someone in the States right now, but she is Supreme Court of Canada. She's precedent setting lawyer. She's phenomenal. She's on. We've got my hypnotherapist. We have a recruiter who's a huge recruiter here in Toronto. She actually comes online with the girls and rewrites resumes with them live. These are crazy services.
Yes.
So that's what we did. We started the subscription service. And for $38 Canadian, which is like $4 US right now, no, it's about 20, 24 maybe, you get access to this suite of services. And not only do you get access to the services, but the best part is you're in a community of women who aren't doom and gloom. These women
Yes.
have gone through, as Marianne Williamson always says, we become, when you become a woman, when you can say to the words, I've been through hell and back.
Wow.
That's from princess to queen, she says in A Woman's Worth. Is
Mm.
is we have oh I love Marianne. Yeah, she just says these things and it's like, yeah, from slave girl to queen or from princess to queen. It's when you can say I've been through hell and back. So it's these women who support each other and who lift each other up. And like we were saying, standards. They hold each other to a higher standard. And they're the kind of women that sit at the bottom of the well and say, okay, sweetheart. They sit with you and they say, okay, you know what? What have you gone through? This is terrible. Let's grieve together. I will hold your hand as we grieve together. How long do you need? 5 days, 3 months, maybe 6 months? Okay. And then let's make a plan to get out. Let's not sit here and commiserate. Let's make a plan. Let's do this. So, yeah, we get together every week with a new practitioner, whether it's a therapist, whether it's, last week was hypno. Monday, we talked to the lawyer. The next week, I'm just doing open. I'm teaching everyone how to read fund facts sheets. So, when you buy an exchange traded fund,
Mm-hmm.
they have what's called a fund facts sheet. So, I'm teaching everybody how to read one and
Oh, I
how
love
to,
that.
what to look at. And they're going to, basically say, what do you think of this ETF? And I can't, I guess, legally give my opinion. I mean, I can give my opinion. I can't say like, yeah, this is good for you and this one isn't, but I can say, teach someone how to read it and say, look, for example, this one's very common in what I see. A lot of women post-divorce get their husbands, like a percentage of their ex-husband's portfolio. And they'll come to
Mm-hmm.
me and they'll say, look at this. Is there something wrong with it? And I kid you not, this is like the guy's thing for whatever reason. It's like 75% crypto, 20% S&P 500, and 5% Apple.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. Well, it's first of all, like let's say it's a $10,000 portfolio. This was a live thing that one woman showed me. She's like, I'm like, okay, is this like a percentage of like a larger portfolio? She's like, no, that's everything. I said, that's all you have. You have 10,000 and that's where it is. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, sell all the crypto. We can't have that risk, right? And then we just have, again, not sexy, not fun. No one's talking about this on Instagram. But you know what? Diverse, like we teach them diversity. We teach them, like owning the market. Don't buy a stock ever, buy the market. And in the
Mm-hmm.
States, S&P 500, it's so simple. That's just VOO, Vanguard, VOO. And that's all. And then by buying one share of VOO, you've got the 500 companies in there. So if one fails, you're being lifted by 499, like 499 of them. So that little bit of knowledge gets them in it. And what happens when you're in it? What happens when you're a shareholder? You're now an investor.
Exactly.
And when you're an investor, you see investment opportunities. You start to see value. You start to say, oh my God, I'm not making enough based on all the value that I'm providing my company. Let's talk about raises. And it's changing. So what we're doing in this group and all the speakers that I have, and sort of, we have a core group. So we've got like a group of practitioners that are on almost monthly, call it every 6 to 7 weeks.
Oh,
But then we
nice.
have guests that always come on. And, we've had an Emmy nominated writer that came on as a guest to talk about how she used writing to heal and offered if any of the moms wanted some coaching,
Hmm.
ultra low cost. They could get coaching, and this particular woman has done a lot of work in voiceover, so she was happy to offer coaching in voiceover. We have public speaking. So I'm sure you guys, everybody in the States loves, oh my God, what's the show?
Toastmasters.
No, no, it's a show. Eugene Levy, the hotel.
Schitt's Creek.
You guys all love that. You
Oh
love
yeah.
the funny thing with Pitts Creek, my mom grew up in that hotel. That was owned by my family. They came
Goodness.
immigrants from Ukraine, and that hotel they bought to do summer camps. So my mom has, yeah. So, anyways, but that's a totally other story. The point that I'm trying to make is that Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, John Candy, a lot of these people, he's separate, but he did this too. They belong to a troupe called Second City, and in Toronto, Second City is sort of the foremost public speaking school.
Mm,
They do improv and they do public speaking. Second
okay.
City is teaching our girls. So,
And
like,
that's
you know what I
huge.
mean?
Just to have access, I feel like, to resources. And I feel like we've talked about that in community. That's where you find the resources that you need. So you're not up at night at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to find them
Yes.
yourself.
Yep.
You have to lean on people that know, 5% more than you, or that are going to challenge you and push you. And so I love that you are giving that access to your
That's,
community.
I love that you said that. That's the
Yes,
word.
I love
That's
that
the
you're on
word.
here and that our community is going to have access to that as well. And also, I think, to be educated. You talked about earlier, like, what the relationship is with your finances and your experience. And I even think about my mom, like, telling me, finances is a very private conversation.
How many of us have heard that?
You know,
It's,
yeah.
what is it? Not gauche. It's when you talk about finance, it's like, it's just, we don't do it as ladies. Like,
Yeah,
we
it's like
don't.
poor decorum or something
Yeah.
like that. But when in reality, I'm like, isn't that the biggest thing that we should be talking about? And I understand, right, the premise of that's not a conversation you can have with everyone,
Yes.
but it is a conversation that you have to be vulnerable to elevate yourself. And I know a question that comes up a lot within our community and even the single parent space is, okay, I do want to educate myself financially and I want to take some small steps. I'm ready to take that. What would you say to them?
There's great books out there. There's great podcasts. I mean, if you're just starting from the bare minimum, or from the, sorry, like ground zero, like just starting. I love, on Netflix, you have Ramit Sethi, the I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Oh, yes,
And
that is
that's
on
the
there.
book. The book, he has a book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. He's so just like real. And I love, because he's like, look, we're going to see, this is what you earn. These are your expenses. You know what I mean? Like, this is called an income statement. This is your balance sheet, your assets, and these are your liabilities. And if the numbers don't match, like, it's like, if they don't jive, if your liabilities are greater than your assets, so if you have a negative net worth, for example, it's like, it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is not admitting that there's a problem. You know what I mean?
I
So
understand
it's
that.
like, if you see that you have a negative net worth, there's no reason to be ashamed of that. We all go through it. Like, billionaires go and declare bankruptcy and they have a negative net worth, and they're proud of it, right? So it's not a bad thing, but he teaches you how to look at them and then how to adjust. In finance, it's always like, you think of, or in financial planning, of levers that you can adjust. That's how I think of it. So, for example, if you want to retire with a certain amount of money, well, what are the levers that you can pull? Well, the amount that you save, the amount that you make, right? If, like, for example, if you're also financing your children's school, well, if you're financing your children's school, it's going to push your retirement back a little bit. So if that's a lever that we can push, that, so it's all of these levers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say start with that book. There's The Psychology of Money, which is a fantastic book. A new book just came out. Oh my God. It's not about money.
Okay.
I think it literally came out a couple weeks
It's
ago.
called It's Not About Money.
I'm gonna tell you, one second.
You're
I think it's
good.
called It's Not About Money. Everything But Money. It's called Everything But Money. That's a good one. I should just look at oh my God. Amazing ones are Tony Robbins.
Mm,
Tony Robbins did, what are his two books? I know Money Master the Game is a great one. There's The Path that Tony Robbins wrote with Peter Maluk. Again, these are all very digestible books. They're not meant for, you don't need some sophisticated financial knowledge.
exactly. Like, easy to read conceptually.
So easy, so easy. I'm literally scrolling through my thing here to give you a bunch of, we can put book recommendations in the chat afterwards.
Yeah, I'm gonna put those in the show notes. So thank you for sharing those. And now on the investment piece, I know we talked a little bit about this offline, but and you
Yes.
mentioned it a little bit, that's always a key area for me. Like, where can I invest? Where can I make my money grow in my
Mm,
sleep?
yes. Where can I make my money grow in my sleep? Yes, that's the goal. I mean, the goal is that we create what we like to call a money machine, which is making
Mm-hmm.
money in your sleep. We somehow, it's somewhere, again, those money stories, someone told us sometime somewhere that we had to trade time for dollars.
Ooh, that was good.
We don't trade time. We shouldn't. Rich people don't trade time for dollars, right?
Yeah.
Their money works for them. They have residual income. They have all kinds of things, like you say, make money in our sleep. So, the goal is, how do you do that? Well, okay. From the investing point of view, when you say, people say, like, where do I put my money so that it works for me? You have to understand, or the first thing to understand with finance, like the biggest thing is, number one, it's always a trade off between risk and reward. Always, always, always. That's how the market works. So, for example, if you go and hear about someone who made 7,000% in crypto, right? That's only, and it's true, it can be, it's only true because it's such a risky investment that it could go to zero. If you, however, invest in something more stable, like whatever, just a blue chip company, even, but I would never say invest in one company. You want to invest in what's called an exchange traded fund, or an ETF, like we mentioned
Okay.
before, VOO. That's S&P 500 for those of you listening in the States. In Canada, we have VCE,
Mm-hmm.
which is the top companies in Canada. So, always want an array, a variety, if you will, a basket of stocks, so that when one goes to zero, and they probably won't go to zero in that portfolio of companies, but let's just say one goes down, you're protected by the others. What happens when you buy one stock? Yeah, you could make a huge gain. Yeah, you have stratospheric returns, right? It could. But more likely, it will go to zero, which is a problem. So when you have people, and also, look, there's traders. I worked as a trader for years. There are people with sophisticated levels of financial acumen, sophisticated computers, Bloomberg, all of these things that are giving them real-time information, and they're wrong most of the time.
Mm.
So, in the psychology of money, Morgan, I think it's Morgan Housel, I think, he says that in finance, it's the only industry where someone who's a complete novice can actually do better than someone with years and years of knowledge, because we have like biases. We have, we think we're smarter than everybody else. So
That's a very good point, and it
yeah,
actually gives me a lot of confidence.
100%. Well, because if you haven't been like, oh, I know this and I have this sophisticated strategy and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to, get my hands in this, you're just like, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take $50 at the end of every week and I'm going to invest it in the broader market and buy myself an exchange traded fund. VOO right now is trading for 550 for one share, but you can buy fractional shares if you want a smaller
Mhm.
bit of that. But you own all the Magnificent Seven. So you've got Nvidia, you've got Apple, you've got all these companies in there, the top 500 companies in the States. So that's all you do, and then you don't get sidetracked. So psychology, investor psychology, is when the market's okay. Here, let's do a test. You've got a portfolio that's worth $10,000. You look at your portfolio one day, like the next day, and it's $9,000. What do you do? What do you think?
Ooh.
What do you want to do? What do you think most people do?
Do
They
they
get,
pull out?
yeah, they get scared,
Yeah.
right? When things get down, you're like, oh my God, I'm scared. I hate this game. I'm finished. I'm out. Well, okay. 3 out of 4 years, the market always goes up. 1 year, it goes down out of those four on average. I'm talking long term, right?
Yeah, of course.
So if you hold on, it will always go up, you know? So, it's again, it's knowing, if anything, if the market goes down, you buy more,
Mm.
right? Because you're getting it
'Cause you're
cheaper.
anticipating, yeah, and you're
Yeah.
getting it cheaper,
And
yeah.
it's what we call dollar cost averaging. Essentially, you can dollar cost average down. So, for example, if your average price that you've paid for a stock, call it, like, again, let's go VOO. So if its average is 550 and you have one share, and then you see it's gone down to 500, and then you buy it at 500, well, your average cost is 525. So you're averaging down every time you buy
I
when it's
see,
lower.
okay, when it's lower, okay.
And that's your goal. And it will go up over time, but you don't even like, so for example, in our group, one of the girls is like, oh my God, the S&P 500 fell 3% today and it was big news. She's like, why did it happen? So anyways, I didn't even know. No, I didn't know that had happened. And I read online and yeah, like, okay, like hedge funds needed to, like, it was kind of sophisticated. Hedge funds needed to like cover shorts and it had to do with Japanese. Like it was, again, it was sophisticated. There were two main reasons. And I kind of explained them very simply. And then I said, but we don't care. Because again, if we listen to the minutia, first of all, we're busy. We don't have time
Mhm.
for this.
That is true.
You know what I mean? And if it stresses us out and we want to know why and all of these things, like again, I just dollar cost average. I throw a bunch into the market like every week. That's it. That's all I do. And that's all anyone needs to do. And it's so funny how I studied. So the CFA is like a 3-year intensive. It's like the MBA of finance. And again, so sophisticated, so specialized that we learn all this stuff. And you get to the end. And then you realize that everything you learned doesn't help anyone. Like,
Oh, wow. And
excuse me,
that's a realization, isn't
you
it?
know, like, yeah, this could help if I was working at some hedge fund or a pension fund and trying to, offset, like make some sophisticated options strategy or whatever. But again, how does that help the mom trying to get her family through? It doesn't. And back to the idea of it's not our game. Our
Mhm.
game is a simple, responsible, not so sexy strategy. That's it. And it's so funny that the challenge is not, so like we go back to the financial literacy, the challenge is not knowing what to do. Because if you just trust me, and I will show you, Warren Buffett says the same thing, and I would trust Warren Buffett over me. Been doing it a little longer with a little bit more success. He says for any investor, for any regular person out there, you're always just better buying the S&P 500. So if that's all you do, that's all you need to do. You can go today and buy a share of VOO for $550, and that's it. And that's your investment. And you will see it grow over time. You will outperform almost everybody out there, because when you get in there and you start like, oh, maybe I should buy this. Oh, this is sexy. Oh, this isn't good. Oh my God, it's going down. I'm going to sell. I don't know when to buy. Like, that's stressful. And
Yes, it is very stressful.
and there's actually a study. It was so funny. I can't remember who did the study, but the study is that someone's like they took people and they realized that the portfolios that did the best were the ones where the people looked at them the least, right? Because there's trading costs. Every time you
Yeah.
make a trade, it costs. So, when you get in there and you're like, oh my God, it's dropped. I need to like liquidate, or, you know what I mean? Sell this. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And if you do, that's called insider trading. And if you trade on that insider information, you go to jail. So we
Mm.
don't do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so yeah, the markets are a funny thing, but that's exactly it. If I could, again, from the financial piece if I could tell your listeners one thing, number one, if you've ever been told that you're stupid with money and that investing isn't for you, that's not true. You weren't born with that story. Someone gave that to you, so you need to get over it. It's not true. You need to tell yourself, I am your new identity. How they say, like, manifestation, whatever. I'm a millionaire. I'm a rock star. I'm a
Yeah.
supermodel. And then your nervous system is like, yeah, right. You can't even pay a bill. Like, so you need to find a new identity. And that new identity is, I am learning how to be a responsible investor. You can get behind that.
Yeah.
And I would say, so again, if I could leave you with anything, is number one, you can do it. Number two, the game that you're playing is not a complicated one. So you're playing a simple, simple game. All you have to do is Google dollar cost averaging. That's our game. Or look up Warren Buffett investment advice. Like, again, but again, we make it complicated and we don't even like, it doesn't take much
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And that's not what you need. And I love that you said it where it's like that's not the game that we're playing. I feel like I posted it on my personal Instagram because and this is outside of the finance realm, but I work out. I'm consistent with it, but I get a lot of questions from moms where it's like, "How are you doing this?" Like I see all these people on TikTok and they're working out 2 times a day in 3 hours and they're up at 5 a.m. I'm like, we are not playing the same game.
Love that.
You know what I mean? Like, I have and the way I
Wants to
expressed
play
it
that
was
game. I don't want to play that game.
I know, I'm like, 3
2
hours
hours a
is a
day.
little
I want
extensive.
to eat the damn cookie every once in a while.
That is true. Sometimes I just have to eat the bread, but it was more of a post saying like you how you approach this is going to look different, right? You have dependents. So, yeah, you probably can't afford time wise to be somewhere for 3 hours,
Yeah.
right? Especially as a single parent, you might not be able to leave your house with with your kids at home
Mhm.
at 5 a.m. So, trying to play the same game that a single woman is playing
Yep.
with no dependents is going to consistently leave you in a space where you are mentally discouraged.
And you also don't know what game she's playing.
Yeah, you really don't know at the end
You
of the
know what
day.
she's posting, but you don't know that that's not the same day, like, over and over again, and that she's just not eating, right? Like, we have no idea, and that's the thing is it's like we try to hold ourselves to some standard that's impossible, and the reason we do that is because this may be unpopular. I'm gonna try we all know deep down in our hearts that we're meant to be extraordinary,
Yes.
right? Especially again, this particular audience who's listening to your work about being an amazing person, you know that they know they're meant for greatness and meant for more.
Yes.
But I think somewhere deep down, if we don't show up fully, if we don't shine as brightly as we can, we're not as devastated when our dreams don't come true,
Mm.
right? So for example, you know, even when I'm trying to build my community, and if I don't, because my heart is it's my heart, it's everything. But if I say I didn't really give it my all, it doesn't reflect on me. You know what I mean? Oh, I was busy
Yeah.
doing other stuff. I was busy
Yeah.
doing other stuff. I didn't, that's why, you know? Oh, I like that's what I mean. So it's almost like when you are extraordinary, when you're someone who wants to shine and believes you were put here for a reason, and when life gets really tough, it's almost like we search for that excuse.
Yes.
And that's the part that I'm like, it's unpopular because it hurts. It causes you to look within. Where are your
Mhm.
blocks? And in building my community too, I'm seeing a lot of my blocks. Like where do single moms don't want to hear from me. Like, you know what I mean? Like there are a group of us that want to improve our circumstances. And again, not just improve our circumstances, use our circumstances as a means by which to become fantastic.
Exactly.
So again, these are my stories. So what stories do all of us have? Like if we were put here, if everything, like we were talking when we first sort of came on, imagine a life where we wrote all of our challenges and all of our tribulations and our heartbreaks and the tears and the loss and the grief and the ruin and all of this, and we planned it on purpose. And the reason we planned it on purpose is because we knew that to get through those things, we become extraordinary people. So, and whether it's true or not doesn't matter. If you believe it to be true, how do you show up in the face of adversity? Totally different because you're like, oh, I put it there. You're here to teach me, in design thinking, what do we say? What in this situation am I not seeing? Like, what am
Yeah.
I not seeing? You become that person. Whereas if you just believe that the world is against you, like you, the creator, like whatever you believe, God, the field, void, whatever you believe is out there that's greater than you. Yet, your problems are worse than anybody's. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're the one that God dumped on. Like, come on.
And it's also like, how are you going to be able to really solve for that, right? The same thing we the gravity example.
Yeah.
And so I think I love that challenge, especially for this space. Yes, I think this space is servicing women, right? We are wanting to elevate and use our circumstance to be a conduit to, whether it is kindness, whether we're trying to educate,
Yeah.
empower, there is purpose in every obstacle that we go through. And we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to show up and be the best version of ourselves? So I absolutely love that you said that in this space. And I know that it's definitely going to touch someone and heal someone. So I want to also make sure that everybody knows where to find you.
Yeah. Thanks. So our site is called Single Parent Redesign. And it's .com, singleparentredesign.com. And the Instagram is exactly the same. Excuse me. at Single Parent Redesign. And you can reach out to me. You can email me through the site. You'll see there's the members site. So if you wanted, there's a 14-day trial on the membership. And again, we'll put in all kinds of coupon codes to get a discount from that after the fact. And you can read that in the show notes. But send me a message. I want to hear from you. I want to get to know you. I want to know your story. It's important. One thing that we've realized in this sisterhood is that even though all the stories are so unique, we all have a common thread.
Yes, we do.
Right? That goes through us. So it's amazing. Again, like our girls are not the kind of girls that are like commiserating on the problems. They're the ones when a sister has a problem, they swoop in like Wonder Woman. We're going to lift you up. We're going to do this. So yeah, singleparentredesign.com. My name is Talia. I would love to, again, I'd be honored to take you up this mountain as your Sherpa.
Well, I love that. And we have come full circle. Talia, thank you so much
for
joining. Yes. For the audience, this is the power of community, social media. We met through Facebook networking group, and then it just kind of spearheaded from there. And I think your knowledge and your spirit resonated. So I appreciate you bringing that into this space. I know that I'm learning from it, and I can't wait to just grow in life with you.
I know. I have to come visit you.
And I have to come visit you. We have 2 trips.
You've got a home in Toronto anytime. I have space. Here.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much. Everybody, I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.